Like anything in the head and neck, the patient lies supine, but the neck must be hyperextended because you want to see that gland pop out. You use a high resolution transducer, nothing less than 7.5. I keep saying nothing less than 7.5. And then you'll do axial and transverse scans. In my department, we call parathyroid scans a 10-second scan. In one single sweep from the angle of the mandible down to the clavicle in 10 seconds, if there is a parathyroid, it will jump out at you. You just need to know where to look for it, and the parathyroid will become quite obvious. So let me show you how we do it. Calcification is quite uncommon, though cystic component is often present. As the gland becomes bigger and bigger, it undergoes necrosis, so the cystic component is actually quite often present. And it is separated from the thyroid by this well-defined echogenic line. Now remember, lesions that are behind the thyroid lie in the longitudinal plane. That is why they are either flat or they are long. So where that parathyroid is located will tell you how that parathyroid looks. So let's have a look now. I'm going to run 4 movie clips for you. That's the parathyroid there, that's the parathyroid there, that's the parathyroid there. There'll be one coming up here, and you'll see they are all aligned longitudinally, either flat or oval. So every time you're scanning, if they are behind the thyroid in the longitudinal plane, they will be flat or they will be oval. And that's because they are aligned in that axis. Calcification is rare, but if the parathyroid is long-standing, you might see calcification in that parathyroid gland. I'm running these movie clips for you, and you'll see calcification in the parathyroid gland. That's the thyroid nodule, we'll disregard it. That's the parathyroid over there with calcification in it. There's parathyroid with calcification in it. Does that calcification signify anything? Prospectively, it has no relevance, whether it's calcified or not calcified. But when you look at retrospective data of parathyroid carcinomas have a higher incidence of calcification. So just because you see calcification, you cannot predict that this is going to be a parathyroid carcinoma, but that light bulb goes in your head that I will think of a parathyroid carcinoma, and I will go and search for signs of infiltration or invasion in soft tissues. Cystic, let me run movie clips for you. You'll see cystic change, small parathyroid adenomas, small cystic change, large parathyroid adenomas, large cystic change. You'll see that even on MR. So these are things that happen in larger glands, cystic change, calcification. In the smaller glands, they are usually solid, they are usually flat in the long axis, but as they grow, because they outgrow their blood supply, they have hemorrhage, intratumoral necrosis, and that's why you have this cystic change. It does not signify anything else other than cystic change. It can't tell you a parathyroid adenoma from a parathyroid carcinoma. And these are the typical lesion sites. Superior is behind the upper and middle third of the thyroid gland, which is a fixed location, and the inferior can be anywhere behind the strap muscles or within the thyrothymic ligament going all the way down into the mediastinum. Multiple parathyroid adenomas. I'm going to run this movie clip. This is longitudinal, so that's the top, that's the bottom, and this is axial. Just watch, you will see 2 parathyroid adenomas come up. There's one over there, and the other one comes quite late in the scan. There's one over there, that's the parathyroid adenoma, and as you scan, there's another one downstairs just above the clavicle. And it's these lower ones that are actually quite difficult to pick, and often these are missed. If you see one parathyroid, it doesn't mean you stop your search for the others, but it gives you a sense of assurance that because 85% of them are solitary, if I have seen one, at least I have started helping the patient towards their recovery, towards their surgery, and I will search for the other, which is present in 1 to 3% of cases. Atypical lesion sites, as we said, anything from the angle of the mandible down to the mediastinum. often they are along the common carotid artery, and they're often mistaken for cervical lymph nodes, but these patients have a different history. They have a history of hypercalcemia, they may have associated renal calculi and everything else that goes with it. So the history is different. And then you have internal vascularity. We'll come to that in a minute. This one was given to me by I call him my teacher, Asif Momin, because every time I come to Bombay, he shows me interesting cases and he'll always share those cases for me. And this is, as you can see, located just in front of the carotid artery. So this is a parathyroid adenoma. One of the commonest ectopic sites of a parathyroid adenoma is this. The other one is in the submandibular area. Atypical intrathyroid. Do not disregard an intrathyroid parathyroid adenoma. When you are searching for parathyroid, any hypoechoic, solid, flat or oval nodule in the long axis of the thyroid, start thinking that can this be an intrathyroid parathyroid adenoma, because they are quite often located within the thyroid gland. So this is how it looks like. The rest of the gland completely normal. One nodule very well defined along the long axis. We'll discuss vascularity in a minute. Let me run these movie clips for you so that you know what these parathyroid adenomas look like when they are intrathyroid. This intrathyroid, another one, and these are all confirmed by a cystectomy. So if you're searching for a parathyroid adenoma, you see something like this in the thyroid gland, even against a background of multinodular goiter, start thinking of a parathyroid adenoma. Cystectomy scan can confirm it. Sometimes what we also do is we do a fine needle aspiration, cytology, and we send that even for parathormone estimation. So the cytology will tell you parathyroid cells seen over there, and the parathormone estimation will tell you whether that is the parathyroid or not. This one is down in the neck. I'm going to run this movie clip for you. From the top to the bottom, we'll have a look at this one. I'm going to run both these movie clips for you. This is Doppler. We'll come to it in a minute. But let me run both these movie clips for you. So you can see we're starting at the top. This one is at the site, but we'll look at this one first. We're starting at the top, coming all the way down into the supraclavicular fossa. And there you see something that should not be present. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Just beneath the strap muscles. We'll run that movie clip again. So those are the strap muscles, sternohyoid and sternothyroid. So they will be making their way towards the sternum, and underneath that you find the cystic nodule, and that is the cystic nodule underneath the strap muscle. In a patient with hyperparathyroidism, that is highly suspicious of a parathyroid adenoma, and that's what it was on a cystectomy scan over there, and on a 4D CT, that's where it was. We'll discuss 4D CT in a minute. This was the parathyroid adenoma on the 4D CT. When you see vascularity in a parathyroid adenoma, whether it is intrathyroid or extrathyroid, it has one single penetrating vessel that comes from one of the poles, usually the superior pole of the adenoma. So there will be a vessel that comes in from the superior pole of the adenoma. Sometimes it branches within the adenoma, or sometimes it does not branch within the adenoma. So we used to see this, and this became, in my mind, a hallmark of parathyroid adenoma. Today when you read, you will read Bob Sofferman's polar vascularity in a parathyroid adenoma. So you'll see single vessel coming down from the superior pole of the parathyroid adenoma. One vessel, and it will come into the gland. It may or may not bifurcate within the gland. And here we are. Polar vascularity, one large vessel coming in and then bifurcating. Large vessel coming in, bifurcating. One large vessel coming in and then bifurcating. So these are polar vessels, and this is in the intrathyroid pad, one large vessel coming in, bifurcating inside. So it is one vessel that penetrates into the adenoma and may or may not bifurcate, and that is a very good clue for a parathyroid adenoma. This is one place in the head and neck where Doppler is very useful. Sesame B scan for many years. This is the mainstay of parathyroid imaging because it is the most accurate, because it picks up mitochondrial activity. So it is the most accurate, and that is the reason it is almost always one of the two tests that is included prior to surgery. So the principle is both the thyroid and the parathyroid will take up Sesame B scan. Just remember this now. Both the thyroid and parathyroid will take up the Sesame B scan. So you do an initial scan, you do a delayed scan. In the initial scan, the Sesame B will be both in thyroid and parathyroid. In the delayed scan, the thyroid washes out, whereas parathyroid still retains the Sesame B. So in the delayed scan, you will see the parathyroid adenoma.